Boyinaband, or David Brown, is a YouTuber who's collaborated with some of the most well-known creators throughout the past decade, including PewDiePie in his Congratulations song, iDubbbz for a content cop and Rice Gum, and the Odd Ones Out in his Life is Fun track. This guy gets around and all in all was a well-respected creator in a lot of communities. Recently he's been accused of some serious things that have left him in a crossfire of criticism though. This all started because of a post on Reddit alleging him to be a lot of things. But before we dive into this topic, I must stress that these are allegations. Initially, I didn't think that there was enough backbone to go off of to even make a video until I came across blog posts from Boyinaband himself dating back over 10 years ago, which I will admit does not paint him in a good light in terms of the bigger picture of these allegations. So how did a once beloved YouTuber turn into an alleged predator? At 10 to 9 in the morning of September 7th, a Reddit user posted a list of serious allegations against Dave. The post reads, "First of all, thank you for your time and understanding. We want to let you know that we intended to try and handle this as privately and quietly as possible. Some time ago, a group of his ex-partners wrote a letter in the hopes of stopping the outgoing pattern of abuse. We know there were more victims of his in his past, and if you're one of them and we didn't find you before, message us. All we want to do is tell you that you're not alone and that none of this was your fault." The letter read, "Dear Brown family, friends and fans of Dave from Boyinaband, we apologize for contacting you this way. We're a group of girls who knew and dated David in real life for 1 to 6 years. Some of us met you personally. We know you love David and want to see him as a good person and as a role model. We were also the people who once loved him and cared about him deeply. We understand that you want to see him happy. Still, decades of enabling his abusive behavior have led to many horrific and dangerous situations that included years of lies, manipulation, and emotional, financial, physical, and even sexual abuse of many young girls. Now, before we go any further, I want to present one of the biggest sources of evidence around these claims, specifically him dating younger girls. A blog post was discovered on the Wayback Machine, which is a site that takes screenshots of internet data over the years and stores it as a way to sort of time travel into the internet's past. The first blog post is dating back to 2011, when Dave talks about his girlfriend now being the legal drinking age. Now, because this isn't the US drinking law, this would make the girl in question 18 at the time when Dave was well into the age of 23. But then as you dive deeper, things get worse when details of the relationship are described by Dave himself. On the 3rd of March 2009, Dave made a post talking about a girl he had recently started dating, who had the same name, Rachie, from his 2011 post, and this one is where the questions are for sure. He claims they first met 2 years ago back when he was playing the Generation SummerSlam show back in 2007 at Wolf Run Hall. Then around a year later, after she attended a Yawa live show with a couple of friends, shortly after she messaged him where they began talking and building a friendship, and he even attended her birthday party. He writes in the blog post from 2009, "A few days ago, the day before the Hadouken show, in fact, I asked her to be my girlfriend and paint me with scales and call me a fish. She said yes, so now we're boyfriend and girlfriend. She's really pretty too." Here he attaches a photo of a now inaccessible photo of her, which I wouldn't have displayed anyway since she was allegedly a minor. Hadouken was a show he described as a rave with 500 plus fans in attendance. The Reddit post also discusses Dave allegedly using his fame as an influence to manipulate others in his alleged grooming tactics. The post continues with, "As you know, David is now a 35-year-old polyamorous man with over a decade of provable history of dating girls much younger than him, including highly gullible, obsessive young fans. As you know, he once dated Rachel, who was 17 when he was 23. Rachel was a fan of his band and fell in love with him when she was just 15 years old. David ended up hitting her and telling that to at least 2 of his future girlfriends, which we can also prove. Let us add that this relationship in many countries would be considered as philia. There are 2 videos on the channel that include 17-year-old Rachel. In one, he brags about waking up next to her. In the second, he makes her sing a song with the following lyrics.
Take me,
You gotta
take me without my consent.
You gotta
Take me without my consent.
The post continues, he has a pattern of preying on his young fans after they admire him and write to him on social media. He starts to date them. He then tells them how much he loves them, that they are replaceable, and that he finally disregards them for new ones as soon as they disagree or refuse to do whatever he wants. Most of these encounters include him renting an Airbnb with those girls for a few weeks, then disregarding them. Now, they do provide a long list of screenshots which they present as evidence. I'm not here to read every single one and say it's true or false, because in this case, it's simply not enough evidence to prove further allegations on top of the blog post that Dave posted himself. The most viable source they did provide, however, was a blog post of Rachie also confirming her relationship with Davey. His future Lyle here. I also found a diss track from one of his ex-partners who said the following.
Only speak to me when I will see you as a savior. Express intense emotion, then completely disappear. Seems amiss you go for friends with power, never partners, but say you're a feminist for the camera.
So yeah, it does kind of back up their point a little bit, but then they potentially could have just taken this and spun a story out of it. I don't know, this whole situation is kind of messy. The link dump also includes another blog session titled Rachie Week, in which he talks about spending a week with his favourite Yawa fan, where they went on picnics, went to the cinema, and he drove her to a Skins audition for the 4th season of the TV show, in which he describes her feeling nervous about it and guilty about him driving her there as she didn't want him paying for stuff, but he claims he forced her to attend the audition. The blog post continues with, we know this is difficult for you to read, but it needs to be said. He also has a provable porn addiction that includes him being attracted to pre-teenage girls, women who dress like children, abusive porn, and assaults. He's a pedophile. It's sickening, especially considering that he dedicated his career to helping struggling young people, and ended up harming many of them. Many of his past partners he has ended up with have ended up in therapy due to the trauma caused by David. He coerced multiple young girls into being polyamorous, even if it was something they never considered before him. He advertises it as a superior way of living, which is highly inappropriate if not abusive. He tells his partners that they're replaceable, disappears if they don't do anything he wants, and threats them with zero empathy. When girls want to leave, he either blocks them before they can confront him, or uses his depression and suicidality as cards to force them to stay until he gets bored of them. On the paste dump link, they also provide screenshots that Dave tweeted in December of 2020 when he talks about self-harm, reading, I literally just remembered I used to self-harm like every night for years while listening to painfully loud music. I think I blanked it out. They let me play it live several times and they mocked me after. I felt so fucking embarrassed and emasculated and lonely. I think I didn't wear ear protection during hundreds of live performances because I wanted to hurt myself. Music hurt. So did volume. Now, mental health and manipulation has been a card other YouTubers have pulled, most notably Minilad for example. Now, I'm not saying that this is the case with Dave as there isn't any concrete evidence. Hello, me again. So in the diss track, she also mentions a line about him using depression.
I've other friends who are depressed, it doesn't seem to make them dicks. No wonder you lose interest when nothing matters but the clicks. The red flags were there, yet I couldn't quite accept it. Not you who I had cared for, trusted and respected.
He uses depression to control young girls by justifying why he treats them like garbage or playing with the victim card. He refuses to take any personal responsibility and accountability for how cruel, vindictive, callous, hurtful, and abusive he is. If you ever wondered why years of therapy never really helped him, it's because he cannot face who he really is, and he's unable to take ownership of the things he did, painting himself in bright light in front of his therapists. An anonymous person who allegedly helped David script some of his videos a few years back claimed, I worked on scripts for some of his videos a while back, years ago. He was so messed up and he did something unpleasant to me too. Mainly though, I just got to see how saturated in porn he is, how destructive he is, and how much he hurts people. I warned people I know about him, but he was still involved with my friend at the time, and my main concern was always her. I was so grateful when she escaped him. I hope all the girls and women who get dragged into his spear get away. Other screenshots discuss their past experience with Dave using mental health to justify his actions for years of alleged abuse. He acts the same with his friends, treating them badly, as replaceable, lying about them to make himself look good to get what he wants. For example, when after having no contact for more than a decade with his bandmates, out of the blue he tweets that they used to ignore his self-harm, which was a lie, confirmed and confronted by his bandmates on Twitter and Reddit years ago. Darren admitted that they talked after and both apologised, but Dave never acknowledged that and left the tweet on his front page for almost 2 years now. sending his Twitter mob on his past friends who had normal lives, and Dave got thousands of sympathy tweets from young girls that strongly relate to the problem of self-harm. Currently, Dave hasn't responded at all, which either could be a similar approach to how Slazo or Pyro handled their allegations against him, but it could also be a sign of guilt for all we know. The post continues with, "Again, we are sorry that you had to read this. We're not his haters nor witch hunters and not strangers. We don't want anything. We're not interested in being associated with him in any way. All we want to do is warn his young fans about what can happen to them. Depression cannot be used as an excuse to treat people in this way. Treating any human being in this way is inexcusable. Nobody has been left by him unharmed. We know this is hard, we never wanted to do this, but what about those girls? What about the future ones? There are people, this needs to stop. He needs to be stopped. Please." Now, overall, people's response to this is very mixed. I agree with what people are saying about there being little to zero evidence apart from cropped screenshots that anyone could have faked. I guess the only thing we really have to go off of is the blog post from himself, but even that is a bit warpy in terms of the timeline of what happened and when. Reddit users are getting pretty heated in debates too, with one user arguing that people are way too critical on age gaps in recent years. I think in a case in this with such serious allegations, it's important to be careful with what I say, as I'm not making this video to paint Boyinaband as a groomer, unless they have some solid, concrete evidence of the claims that the girls made in the Reddit post. But I do understand that with cases of assault and abuse, it's not always easy to prove though, however. So I hope this doesn't sound like I'm saying I don't believe the alleged victims. I'm simply just staying neutral on this topic until more info comes out from both sides. But as always, I'm gonna keep an eye on this situation and wait to see if Dave does respond to this, and if he does, it will probably most likely result in a part 2 video. If you found this video useful for navigating the recent allegations, then I'd really appreciate if you could subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.